Once upon a time, a man lost blood on a battlefield. Once upon a time, a drop of blood ran down a woman's thighs. The man was celebrated. The woman rejected, for she was impure. Both of them shared the same dream one night.
There once was an unknown painter, living in a small attic. They were trying to create an image of purity, represented by a perfect circle. For days, the painter kept drawing circle over circle, never quite satisfied with it. And then, one evening, the painter succeeded, and the creamy canvas flaunted a white circle. A perfect white circle. Full of joy, the painter danced around the room, the paintbrush still in her hand. Suddenly, the paintbrush fell into a puddle of red paint, and when the painter hastily picked it up, a drop of red splashed onto the canvas. Impurity had ruined the artwork. Or so they thought. Exhausted and let down, the painter fell asleep. That night, the circle and the drop came to life, bouncing around the room. Impurity kept leaving red marks on everything, and Purity kept cleaning up after them. They started fighting. "Just stop!" raged Purity. "I can't, I'm sorry," cried Impurity. "You better should be," replied the other. For a long time they quarrelled until, just before dawn, the canvas on which they were born started to speak.
Let me tell you a story. Somewhere amongst the stars, in the middle of a galaxy, there was a blue-green planet, constantly turning around a fireball it called the sun. On the planet's surface lived the human race, biologically divided into male and female. They were all very happy. Of course, the male gender had suppressed their counterpart for much of human history, but still, they were all happy. After all, men were the normal gender, and women were the other one. And so man ruled the world, man made laws, and man did the research, while women took on their role as mother and caretaker, and everyone was happy. Yes, there had not been much research nor education surrounding women's bodies and their biology, but they were the other after all, the 50% of people who were different to the norm, and so it was absolutely fine for cultures and religions to tell this other gender that their strange monthly bleeding was unclean, and thus themselves impure. Of course, they chose to ignore why they were bleeding.
"Why were they?" asked Impurity. The canvas smiled and continued its story.
Biological women go through 4 phases each month, even though most of them don't realize. Phase 1. Menstruation. The uterine sheds its lining and contracts. Levels of estrogen and progesterone are low. Cramps, headaches, bloating, anxiety, and depression. Phase 2. The follicular phase. Estrogen rises as an egg prepares to be released. The uterine lining builds back up. Most women are energetic, dynamic, and independent. They need less food and less sleep. Phase 3. Ovulation. Rise in temperature, in sexual energy and self-esteem. Estrogen peaks, an egg is released from the ovary, and estrogen drops again. Phase 4. The luteal phase. Progesterone peaks and drops. The uterine lining produces chemicals that will either support a pregnancy or prepare the lining to shed. Bloating, chest pain, mood changes, food cravings, anxiety, and tiredness. It is the final part of the cycle before the bleeding starts again, and if women try to adjust their lives to their cycle, they might feel better. But of course, women are these strange beings, the other, and why would anyone try to adjust to them? The human race is a happy race after all, and the religious texts are always right.
When a woman has a discharge, and the discharge in her body is blood, she shall be in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening. And everything in which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean. Everything also in which she sits shall be unclean, and whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. The Bible, Leviticus, chapter 15, verses 19 to 30.
If everyone is happy, then why change anything? Why do research into this strange hormonal cycle, this strange other gender? Who cares that in China only 2% of people who menstruate use tampons because they believe they are unhealthy and may take someone's virginity? Who cares that in 2017 more than 137,700 girls in the UK missed school because they couldn't afford menstrual products? Who cares that in India women are not allowed to be in the kitchen or attend ritual practices when they are on their period? Who cares that in Nepal the Chowpatty practice bans all women menstruating from their home, and that whilst this practice has been illegal since 2005, it still affects 19% of the women nationwide? Who cares that these customs increase the risk of rape, violence, and death? Who cares how expensive menstrual products are all around the world because they are only made for the other gender, not the norm, and everyone is happy after all?
When I first got my period, I was 12.
11 Jahre alt, 12 ans, fast schon 14.
13. Da war ich 12.
I was 14
Ich war 10 oder 11.
and I was at home.
In Class.
Beim Friseur.
Das war tatsächlich an dem Geburtstag von meiner Mutter.
I was about to go swimming.
Zur großen Pause hin haben meine Freundin mir schon gesagt, du bist so blass.
Je sens que quelque chose coulait.
Was ist das jetzt für braunes Zeug?
It was before we'd been taught anything about it in school, and my mum had never said anything to me about it. I was just completely convinced I was like dying, but then I didn't want to like say anything to my parents.
I tried to put a tampon in and it didn't go very well. I got very leaky and it was very messy.
Ich am liebsten im Mettboden versunken werde, mich unglaublich geschämt habe.
Ich erinnere mich auch sehr lebhaft, dass meine Mutter sehr besorgt war, weil das jetzt schon bei mir passiert. Es hat sich so unangenehm angefühlt und war ganz, ganz schlimm und ganz, ganz peinlich für mich.
J'avais mal, très mal au ventre et j'ai dit à ma mère que je saignais en même temps. Elle m'a pas trop expliqué pourquoi ni comment. Elle m'a juste donné des tissus en guise de serviette hygiénique en ce temps-là.
They said that the blood will attract evil spirits or something like that.
And I remember that I felt weak and I was in pain and I was scared because I didn't know if people could see the blood coming through my pants.
Damals fand ich super peinlich.
I remember feeling very uncomfortable.
Sehr erschrocken und aufgeregt. Und als ich dann begriffen habe, dass das meine erste Periode ist, war ich sehr stolz. Ich kam mir sehr groß vor wie eine junge Frau.
Meine Großtante, die kam gleich an und hat gesagt, oh, jetzt bist du kein Kind mehr, jetzt bist du eine Frau.
I just wasn't prepared for this. Everybody tells you, you are a woman. When you're on your period for the first time, you're becoming a woman. And I felt like a child. I was confused and afraid of what was happening to my body.
I didn't really know how to handle the situation. Most of the things I know about my period, I had to learn them by myself.
My first time wasn't as painful as I thought, but the ones after that definitely were.
Our bodies are rhythmic. Our bodies are waves crashing and retracting, over and over in our individual ways. We are circles that have been stuck in a rectangle for far too long. We've been ignoring ourselves, our needs, our bodies, never talking about that thing which we were taught was unclean, impure.
But it isn't. It's natural, painful.
Weiblichkeit, Durcheinander,
Children, pain,
Schmerzen, Gesundheit,
Inconfort, enfant, menschlich,
puissance du féminin,
Fruchtbarkeit,
Discovery,
unknown,
necessary, pain, loslassen, pain, Schmerz, rest,
Erleichterung, Stimmungstief,
Neuausrichtung, Schmerzwellen,
fertility, pain,
renewal,
c'est le cycle,
healing, pain,
stronger,
shame, fertility,
Leben, charm,
life, feminine,
stronger,
Schmerz,
Douleur,
normality, life, power, synchronization, womanhood. And we are all together. You know, purity and impurity are only words,
said the canvas.
It's up to you to decide whether they are real.
Through the window of the painter's attic came the first ray of sun, and something strange happened. The two shapes came together and melted, becoming one. When the painter woke up, they couldn't believe their eyes. There was a white circle with a red pattern on the canvas, and it was more beautiful than anything the painter had ever created before.
Once upon a time, a man lost blood on a battlefield. Once upon a time, a drop of blood ran down a woman's thighs. The man was celebrated, the woman rejected, for she was impure.
Menstruation is not so much a taboo in our country, but I guess there are a lot of myths surrounding menstruation. For example, I remember when I spent my time in this thing called national service, we were told by our commanders our pads Every time after we use them, we have to wash them because they said that the blood will attract evil spirits or something like that. Whereas for the Chinese culture, to us, menstruation is somewhat dirty. You know, people just don't talk about it. Whereas for the Muslim, the Malay culture, you cannot pray when you have your period. So I think in Asia, generally, menstruation is considered dirty, but it's not something that you're not supposed to speak about in public, especially in Malaysia.
Je voudrais partager les célébrations du cycle que j'ai rencontrées aux États-Unis avec des femmes qui se regroupaient pour fêter l'arrivée du cycle ou pour fêter la ménopause et pour célébrer la femme dans ces temps de sa vie, des temps extrêmement importants qui ne sont pas célébrés dans notre civilisation. À ce moment-là, j'ai commencé à tenir un journal en notant mes émotions, mon état d'esprit, et j'ai pu ainsi, en pratiquant sur plusieurs années, repérer des constantes. Et j'ai intégré mon cycle et ça m'a rendue à la fois plus apaisée et plus forte. J'ai ainsi pu constater que certaines choses étaient plus faciles à réaliser à certains moments du cycle. Par exemple, si je dois me débarrasser de choses inutiles, c'est beaucoup plus facile pour moi de le faire vers la fin du cycle. Ou si je dois avoir une activité sociale intense, ça sera plus facile pour moi dans la première partie du cycle. Donc j'invite les autres femmes à essayer cette pratique.